is from, it's yesterday's Times columnist, and there's been, you've seen the papers, there's been a couple of articles related to climate change or energy almost every day for the past month. And what you see in the field is that there is many people who have opinions as well about what ought to be done. Okay? So some of the experts from this, wind, tidal, and solar are not efficient. Money spent on R&D of these is just a waste. Runoff river, water storage, and nuclear systems are really the only systems meeting practical standards. So let's forget about everything else and focus on this. Proposals to buy electric automobiles and avoid coal-fired power plants are really a hidden call to increase nuclear power. So, what are we to really make out of this? One of the problems in the energy debate is that there is a tendency, understandably, to oversimplify the issues. And it's good in a sense to simplify a problem because it makes it tractable, but you have to simplify it to the point where it is still meaningful and it provides you with answers that have the kind of impact you want to have. And unfortunately, much of the debate around energy systems goes something like this. For example, and I'm sure many of you might have encountered this, you go to some meetings where you have people who have a fairly focused view on what needs to be done, and basically one of the things, for example, ethanol is a renewable fuel. Right? Gasoline and oil are non-renewable. Okay? So therefore, a blend of ethanol with gasoline has got to be more sustainable than gasoline on its own. Okay? So this might remind you of some old classical philosophical false logic, but you'll get it. It's not necessarily the wrong conclusion, but it's the right way of going about it. And the system, the energy system, can be overwhelmingly complex. So this is what is referred to as a Sankey chart, and I'm not going to go into the details, as it shows you basically the various type of end user services, from transportation to industry to agriculture, etc., and what they're responsible for at the end in terms of greenhouse gases. Okay? There is some very complex interlinkages because agriculture is, for example, apparently linked to transportation, industry to electric power production, etc. So this is really intractable for us. We need to have a bit of a framework that allows us to look at the various type of options and be able to, in as much as possible, provide the best path to chart sustainable pathways. And there's a couple of things that one needs to understand in terms of the current energy system. The first thing that we have in modern society what I'll refer to as a segregated energy system. On the one hand, we have the grid, the electricity grid, which provides the power for stationary services. So residential power, industry, factories, a whole array of things that require this power. This grid is to some extent green, and it depends where you go, is to some extent relatively benign, but in some other places it has quite an impact. And to about 96-97% of the mix that's occurring in the grid, the power generation around the world relies on the use of hydro, that's a case of BC, oil and natural gas, that's a case of Alberta, coal, a lot of it is used in the US. Nuclear power, that's the primary power production in Ontario, France, and a few other countries. And you have a trickle of renewables that are starting to come on board to supplement the power grid. And then what we have is another parallel system which is the one for mobile services, primarily transportation. And the big problem is really, I think, that mobile service system, because that mobile system is essentially entirely dependent on oil. One of the challenges is if we're able to chart pathways that allow us to harness less carbon-intensive sources, how do we channel that energy down to the wheels of our cars and trucks and trains and etc. The second thing to really be aware of is that very often we tend to confine ourselves in the analysis to what happens in emissions locally in our backyard or our car, etc. So tailpipe emissions used to be a big concern for a long time. In fact, a lot of policies that have been developed and implemented in California were primarily motivated by tailpipe emissions and local air quality. Okay? When we're looking at an issue, a global issue such as greenhouse gas emissions, you have to go beyond that.